Oh, welcome everybody. We are going to be talking about what the fuck is happiness and how do you get skinny. Not related. Skinny's a joke, but we actually might have a secret towards the end of this live stream about how I have watched some people get really skinny really fast. And geez, there is a way to do it that I guess most people don't talk about. There's all these exercise programs and things that say how to get skinny. Never mind. We'll talk about that at the end, but there is a secret on how to get skinny. That's just to keep you listening, because we're going to be talking about what the fuck is happiness to you. Because Shereen just heard this whole diatribe on how you can be happier statistically. Mm-hmm. And as I listened to it, I just got more and more bored. so we're
boring you, Garrett.
But I think there's something important about, like, okay, how do you, okay, that's quantifying happiness, but then there's also like experiencing happiness. And I think we all want to be happier, but is happiness the highest value, or is there some other greater value in life than happiness? What is it? Juicy topic. All right, Shereen, let's hear some of the boring statistics.
Oh, okay. Well, you are 5% more likely, or no, sorry, your happiness goes up by 5% if you live somewhere sunny or by the mountains or water. If your children live in close proximity to or in the same house as a grandparent, they are less likely to get a disease.
But are they happier? Is that a happy thing or no? Come on, get your statistics together, woman. All right, listen. If you want to be happier, you got to make a happy face and comment a happy face, or click a happy face on Facebook. By doing that, you will be like 0.5% happier. And if you do it like 200 times, you'll be like 100% happier.
Well, now you're just milking it, Garrett.
Okay, put in the comments, so like what you honestly assign happiness value to in your life. So like the things that you are chasing right now in your life are the things that you think will make you happy. I believe. I think that's how people work. Maybe you're chasing the things that'll make you miserable. Well, they might. The question is, do you believe that they'll make you happy? So what are the things that you believe, if you attain or you reach or you have, will make you more happy? What are the things that you are chasing?
Well,
are those the same thing?
Like, just speaking on what you're talking about.
No, wait. I'm sorry. I have to just interrupt you. Kim here says I'm always happy, and I call bullshit. Bullshit. Unless you are like an enlightened saint, Zen master, avatar, you are not always happy. Or you are on some crazy motherfucking drugs. I don't even think there's drugs that can do that. I don't think there's drugs that can do that. Yeah.
I don't know what you're on, Kimmy, but you let us know, girl.
Yeah. You might think you're happy right now. And listen, I have a mother like you who would like declare that she's always happy. It's bullshit. It's not true. She even named herself Happy. That's my mother's name for like the grandkids. Like the grandkids call her Happy, right? And I think it's a great thing to aspire to. And she would say like she was happy much more than she really was. I mean, this is just like, kids always know their parents' bullshit. So I'm sorry for making my mother's bullshit somewhat public, but she like really aspired to happiness to such a degree that, A, she called herself happy, but B, it's like, I think there is value, Kim, in recognizing that you're not always happy, because as soon as you can see like your shadow and where you are maybe discontent or not happy or something's bothering you, like that, there's tremendous room for growth in recognizing unhappiness as opposed to putting on a happy face and just projecting happiness to the world.
Yeah,
so
Kim is cute. She says, okay, I'm not happy having to work all the time. I was trying to be optimistic. And then she said,
fuck optimism. We're not here to be optimistic. We're gonna drag ourselves through the shit. We're gonna like see what is real happiness. Can it be found under the earth, under the dark crap of our lives? All right. I'm sorry for interrupting you like that, Shereen. Let's take it away.
And then she said like being in nature and traveling, like those are things that make her happy.
I think nature's probably right on. Like you said, 5%. People are 5% happier if they live near the mountains or the ocean, which I think kind of equates to nature.
Yeah.
I deeply I believe I've heard this that spending time in nature will make you more happy. I know for a fact that when I spend time in nature, I am more happy, even though nature fucking bores me most of the time, unless I'm on some sort of mushrooms.
Psychedelic.
Then the
Yeah.
mushrooms make me like really excited about nature. And they make me happy.
Nature is so interesting when you're on drugs.
Especially drugs that come from nature. It's like there's like I don't know, there's something there. It's like, whoa, I don't know. But I can get really like I love the beach. It's awe-inspiring for a moment. The fresh air, meditating or running on the beach or just all that's like great. But I get bored really easily, and then it's like I need to do something, or I need to eat, or I need to, mountains are great because there's something to climb and get to the top of it. And it's like so that gives me something to work on, which I think alleviates the boredom a little bit. But again, like I don't know, I'm far too ADD most of the time. I think the devices, these things, the screens, all the media, it's like it gets hard to appreciate the quietude of nature, the simplicity of nature, unless you're doing extreme sports or something. But then, some good mushrooms. It's like all of a sudden, boom, hey, this is exciting. These stars, holy shit. These trees, you're so beautiful. Like, so being able to get into that state of awe with nature, bam. Like if you can really, it's like seeing, like we get used to not really seeing. You're seeing symbols of things. Like, you're looking right now at your computer and you think there's a computer there or whatever device you're using to watch this live stream, but it's like you're not really seeing that device. There's like some little thing in your mind that's telling you a computer is here or a phone is here or whatever device you're looking at this on is there, and you're not really like looking at it and seeing it for what it is, seeing the material of it, seeing the facets of it. You might be just looking at the video that's inside it, but not seeing what's around it. And by using this sort of shorthand that our brains use so that you don't crash your system, you're able to function on a day, on your daily basis. You're able to like get your shopping done, do your list, get your work done. But what you sacrifice in exchange for being able to kind of block out a lot of the sensory information that's coming at you is you lose that ability to experience awe and wonder and like total rapture at whatever it is that's in front of you. And I think that's the beauty of certain altered states of consciousness where you can open the floodgates and really see what's there. And then you go, whoa, I cannot believe I've been missing this. And I don't know, that does bring me happiness. All right, I know I've missed a bunch of comments, Shereen. Where are we at? Sorry about that.
Electric Tau says Frisian.
Frisian is great, yeah.
Kevo Beats said you have to choose happiness.
Yep.
Alonzo had some very artistic views about happiness, that if he had to call it anything, he would call it glass. And then he said, even if you don't always see it, it's still definitely there. You just have to adjust your point of view slightly, and then the glass will sparkle when it catches the light. What's up, poet? I like it.
Yeah.
I mean, one thing that was interesting from this video I was watching is that they talked about Denmark. It talked about financial stability being actually like a big indicator. Like you'll be 3 times as happy if you have financial stability. So like if you get a raise or you get a windfall of money, like instead of buying some new shoes or some new things, you should probably invest in retirement, because the new shoes and the new things, that novelty will wear off in about like 9 to 12 months or something. But the financial stability will sort of like hold you down. So then he went on to say in Denmark, like school is paid for. And in fact, like some kids are like paid to go to college. Everyone's healthcare is taken care of, and everyone is like solid on their retirement. So there's not as much concern about financial security as there is here in America. And as a result of that, he talked about the thing like this. I'm just circling back to you, like what you brought up, Garrett, of like everyone should comment the things that they're chasing or like the things that they think will make them happy. As a result of the security they have in Denmark, they now choose work that like really like either lights them up or makes them feel like they're contributing to society, and it's actually just like a function of their talents or their interests versus like searching for that status or financial gain. Whereas, and so they have like, I don't know, some crazy percentage of work job satisfaction, whereas like here in America only 30% of people actually like their jobs. So I just found that really interesting.
Yeah, Denmark really has their shit together when it comes to happiness. And I keep hearing about it. I mean, I think it's been a decade now that the studies keep coming through about how freaking great Denmark is with regard to overall gross national happiness. They have a sort of socialist slash capitalist democracy. I don't know exactly how it's orchestrated, but like you said, there's a huge safety net, social safety net. People are guaranteed all sorts of things that we in the United States sometimes get really scared that we're not going to be able to have in the next month or something. And so I think the fear, not having that survival level fear in your life, huge for happiness. Yeah, absolutely. And I want to address somebody's comment that just went by, because I saw it earlier, about have I ever meditated in nature without psychedelics? And the answer is yes. In fact, I never did any psychedelics until I was like 40. So that's that's many decades of my life. Never did that. And why? Because I happen to be, as my art teacher used to say when I was in 7th grade, naturally euphoric. And what does that mean? That means like I can like sort of trip on my own. Like I don't need psychedelics to trip. I can get myself into that ecstatic, I guess you could call it headspace, but psychic space, where I'm kind of like experiencing a similar consciousness to that which those who use psychedelics reach through psychedelics, tripping. Okay, so what does that mean? Well, so there's a couple weird things about this. First, I'll tell you a story. Back in the day where we as a society were just discovering psychedelics, I mean, it's like Timothy Leary was, out there telling everybody to turn on, tune in, drop out. And then he had this guy, Richard Alpert, who later became, he's called Ram Dass now. This dude was like going heavy on the psychedelics, and also interested in this other guy, Maharishi, who was like turning the Beatles on to spirituality, right? So the Beatles are all meditating. Maharishi is like this enlightened master from the Orient in those days, right? And this guy, Richard Alpert, is going out there to, he's tripping balls all the time, here, there, and everywhere, and decides, and he's also sort of studying with the Maharishi, and this Maharishi is supposedly enlightened. So the Maharishi says, hey, this LSD stuff that you're doing, why don't you give me a try? And so he gives the Maharishi like a regular dose, like, which is like 100 micrograms. And the Maharishi's like, no, give me more. And he keeps giving him more, to the point that Maharishi's now dosing 600 micrograms. That is like a heroic dose of LSD. That is a ego-destroying dose where you basically lose all ability to function because you don't even know what you are anymore. And the Maharishi was perfectly fine, like totally functional. And Ram Dass, or Richard Alpert, I don't know what his name was at the time, was like blown away. How the hell is this guy like still lucid and together and unbothered by his experience after taking 600 micrograms of LSD? And the answer was that Maharishi is sort of perma-tripping. He just is naturally like egoless or low on the ego, and allowing all of that information that we were saying, like we normally block out so that we can function. The more you become enlightened, the more you just allow all of this beauty into your mind, and what you have to put aside to access that is your ego. So you have to learn to function in an egoless state. Most people, when their egos are torn away from them on a heroic dose of psychedelics, freak the fuck out, or at least become like a vegetable that cannot function. But the Maharishi's just so used to it, he was fine. It didn't even bother. It was his natural state of consciousness. So that tells us something. That tells us a couple of things. One is that you can achieve sort of a heightened psychedelic or egoless state on your own in nature, or not even nature, in a jail cell. It could be anywhere. You can reach that state on your own. It may take many decades of practice, or according to some spiritual traditions, many lifetimes of practice. Or you can take 600 micrograms of LSD and you might just get there. So I don't recommend the LSD because I haven't tried it to that degree yet, but I would recommend mushrooms. I think there's a consciousness behind mushrooms, a natural consciousness, which I trust more. I don't trust completely, but I trust it more. And either way, you know, there are options. So full circle question. Now, what have I done? Yeah, I've sort of been naturally psychedelic from as long as I can remember. And I picked up meditating and a lot of deep spiritual practice from probably age 10 or 12. And then went really hard on it at like age 17. And basically from 17 through 25, I was in ashrams, meditating, going for the total mystical experience, all that stuff. And I did achieve it. I was able to achieve it, and I stayed the fuck away from psychedelics. And the reason I did is because I wanted to believe my own experiences, and I didn't want to think that, oh, this is like an LSD flashback I just had, not a true mystical experience. Well, I've kind of grown up a little bit out of that now, where I've had enough of those experiences, and I've had enough of, you know, chemically manufactured psychedelic experiences, and I can say that although there are qualitative differences to every trip and to every way you get there, that it's still legitimate. Like, the spiritual experiences you have on psychedelics are still just as legitimate, often just as legitimate as the spiritual experiences you can attain through years or decades of disciplined meditative practice. So anyway, that's from one shaman to another. What can we say? And did it get us happy? So that's the other thing. Did it get us happy?
Well, I mean, you mentioned shaman, so this kind of makes me want to talk about the other book.
Yeah.
And like, I certainly think healing of like pain, suffering, and trauma is a road to happiness. And this little excerpt I sent Garrett from this book I'm reading about how apparently women were shamans way back in the day, even though it's been mostly viewed as like a masculine thing. Basically, apparently shamans are 80% successful at healing when they encourage their clients, patients, I don't know what you want to call them, to publicly perform poetry and art and dance and that kind of a thing. And that psychiatrists, when they encourage their patients privately to talk in a psychoanalytic manner about their pain or draw it through art, that they're only 30% successful at healing. So I'm always talking with Garrett about how art and healing are synonymous and they're like one and the same. And I did a like silly little improvisational performance out of my butthole one time, and like brought up some like fetal trauma from when my dad would hit my mom when I was in her belly. And from that came a lot of healing. And I actually see this chick who's like an urban shaman here in Los Angeles, and she did some little jujus. So I'm very into this whole like healing, happiness, art, performance as a form of moving through pain or healing pain.
Yeah. I want to make a distinction, but well, first of all, I want to know, where do we get video of you doing that performance out of your butthole? Because that sounds interesting.
Performance out of my butthole.
But the other thing that I realized it's like, okay, well, we've got pain and pleasure, and then we've got happiness and sorrow. Well, maybe not sorrow, unhappiness. I don't know what the opposite of happiness is from a spiritual perspective, but I want to just make a distinction between happiness and pleasure, because I think, especially in our society, pleasure is what we're sort of programmed over and over and over again to equate with happiness, but they're different. They're so different. And so pleasure is like, you've got the nice house, the nice car, the great career, the perfect spouse, the perfect family, everybody's healthy, you're skinny, you can eat anything you want. Like, it's all just pleasure, pleasure, pleasure. And none of that's happiness. That's all like what we're told is happiness. But like real happiness is sometimes, Viktor Frankl said that people, will have all that stuff and be unhappy, but he saw people in concentration camps who were happy. It's like, so like someone can have genuine happiness and have nothing and be about to be taken to the showers and executed, and has witnessed their family be executed and is starving to death, and yet somehow they still achieve happiness. So happiness is this other thing that has nothing to do with your outer condition. And I think that is the path of the mystic or the enlightened one, is to discern between happiness and pleasure, to realize, okay, this will bring me happiness and this will bring me pleasure, and the less pleasure seeking you can become and the more happiness seeking you can become, I don't know, that's
pretty deep, actually. That's really deep and very relevant, I think, for like the Wayseer type. Because, I was telling you, like, I'm doing this health diet and I'm still fat, and chocolate covered almonds are happiness to me. Like, that's me totally being pleasure seeking. Like, I just want chocolate in my mouth. Like, that's what I want. That's what I want all day. Like, why can't I have chocolate in my mouth? But the truth is, it also sort of makes me feel stagnant and disempowered and have a little bit of low self-esteem when I feel like I'm not in control of myself enough to like take better care of my health. And part of that's totally vain, and part of that's like type 2 diabetes runs in my family, and my dad died at 56 of cardiovascular issues. So like, if I want to live any kind of long, I actually need to care about health, So yeah, that's very interesting. And that kind of makes me think also of that statistic about how like financial security will make you 3 times more happy versus if you buy the new cool shoes. Like that, like the cool shoes is pleasure seeking, but the financial security is probably what will actually make you happy. Very interesting, Garrett. I think very relevant for the type of audience, because I'm super pleasure seeking. Like, I'm like, dude, I just want a chocolate almond and like new shoes. I don't want to think about my retirement. Boring.
Well, you nail it right there, though. That there is, pleasure and happiness are linked. And they're Pavlovian. They're linked like in a Pavlovian way. So, like when the doctor hits your knee and you sort of react, right? So It's like, now, some people could learn to not respond that way, to like, okay, when my knee gets hit, I won't react, or I will not react to this stimulus with the programmed response, right? And happiness is the programmed response to chocolate. I mean, chocolate's got some psychoactive properties to it too, but it's like there's a programmed response to chocolate, pizza, sex, money, new shoes, new car, all that stuff. And you do get that immediate hit of pleasure, and you feel like, I know, like sometimes I'll take that bite of pizza and I'm like, and I feel like happy. I do feel happy. There's nothing wrong with that. The thing is, though, then I keep chasing the dragon, meaning like I keep eating bite after bite of that pizza, hoping it's gonna bring me continued happiness. But what happens is, like, that first bite was like, so happy, and then like each additional bite is like less and less of the actual happiness. The pleasure's still there, so I don't notice that I'm just feeding my face, and then I wake up after a 3-month pizza binge, and I'm like, I'm not happy with myself, right? So,
Yeah.
so, and I think you said that about the finances, same sort of thing holds true, is like you can go piss your money away on all kinds of luxurious items and a vacation and stuff like that, and you might feel like that instant rush of getting something you want and equate that with happiness, which is true. But I would very quickly, like if I blew my wad on a big vacation and I'm sitting there on day 3 of a 10-day vacation knowing, fuck, I just dropped like 20 grand on this vacation, which I would probably gonna need in 2 months. You know, like that'll fuck your happiness and even the pleasures. Like now you're getting drunk and you're eating too much and you're just trying to find ways to keep chasing that dragon. And another place that, you know, where chasing the dragon is often used is with people who do MDMA, Molly, and you know, they're having that psychedelic experience of love and rapture. It's like so good that they want to do it again, but you can't do it that often because the effects wear off. And another place to chasing the dragon is like mushrooms. Mushrooms are highly, you know, the psychedelic mushrooms are highly psychoactive and psychedelic that first time you do them. But if you do them the next day, they're going to be a little less, and the next day a little less, until like 4 days in, they're not even affecting you anymore. And again, that's called chasing the dragon. But like with Molly, chasing the dragon is really bad because you just fuck your serotonin levels so hard by just continuing to hit it that you can't like produce the natural happiness chemical reaction in your brain. So you are, you know, chasing that external chemical thing in your brain. Now, somebody commented here earlier, and I'm hoping I can remember it clearly, but they were saying being sort of a natural tripper. Oh, I didn't mention this before, but I was listening to, I hope I have the right guy. It was either Rupert Sheldrake or it was somebody Graham. What's his name? Paul Graham? I think it's Paul Graham. I'm sorry, Mr. Graham, if I got your first name wrong. The guy who like figured out that, you know, the Sphinx is like 12,000 years old, not 3,000 or 5,000 years old. That dude. He was saying that it's actually been scientifically shown that 1 or 2% of the population can naturally go into psychedelic trance states.
Oh, really?
Bing, bing, bing. Right. So, yeah, so you might be one of those. If you're a wayseer and you find like you can naturally go into those sort of psychedelic states, don't question that. Like, that is possible. I mean, you just might be 1 or 2 out of 100, but it's totally possible. So I believe I'm one of those people because I've had some majorly tripped out experiences in my waking, lucid, sober existence through meditation and prayer. And so, okay, so I can naturally trip. And then trying psychedelics, being able to naturally trip, also when you're using that in the service of a spiritual path, like my objective, like meditating, I never meditated, not never, but 99% of the time that I meditated, I wasn't meditating to achieve peace. Fuck peace. I'm just bored by peace. Like, peace doesn't interest me. And so when Shereen and I were originally talking about the name of the show, and she was like, we were talking about happiness, I'm like, fuck happiness. But
I was like, geez, Garrett.
Yeah, geez, bah humbug. I don't need to be happy. But I guess what I mean is like, like Madame de Stael said, life is but a choice between boredom and happiness. And I don't know, Freudian slip. Life is but a choice between boredom and suffering. But you can see what I equate happiness with: suffering. I can like swap suffering for happiness, and they're the same thing in my mind. Well, no, life is but a choice between boredom and suffering. That is what Madame de Stael said. And I do believe that on a surface level, that's very true. And I think 8 or 9 out of 10 people in the population would rather be bored and not suffer. I think wayseers prefer to not be bored at all costs. And so for me, peace was like All right, that's boring. Happiness sometimes seems like, are you talking about peace here? Because if you're talking about peace, I would rather be a pleasure-seeking motherfucker, getting my rocks off, being excited, not being bored. Thank you very much. And so anyway, sorry, that was a big detour. But the reason I bring that up is because whenever I prayed and meditated, I wasn't going for the peace. I wasn't going for perfect stillness and like, I don't know, like that's not what I want. Like the watch your breath kind of shit. I couldn't stand that. You know, it's like, But I was going for mystical experience. Very into mystical experience. Very into like that on high experience. Frisian, somebody said in one of the comments before, it's like there is this miraculous, beautiful gates of heaven kind of place that we can get to in our consciousness. And if you're, I guess, a natural born tripper, meaning you don't need psychedelics to get into that trance state, like you can train your mind to go. You can find that place in your consciousness. Now, Timothy Leary, I don't think was one of those people. Timothy Leary, though, loved that place too, but he found that he could get there through LSD, and he thought everybody should go there. Everybody should try this. And that's why he's telling the world, turn on, tune in, drop out. Thank you to Timothy Leary. He, caused so much disruption and threatened so many people in authority positions by having this sort of anti-governmental, anti-establishment, turn on, tune in, drop out, do psychedelics, and fuck the establishment kind of campaign that Richard Nixon went and made all the fucking psychedelics illegal. It's like, so he really kind of kicked the hornet's nest for everybody and kind of, I don't know, he's like that dude at the party who is so loud and rambunctious that the cops came and broke up the party. Well, I think that's kind of what Timothy Leary unfortunately did in his time. And there's a guy, Michael Pollan. I'm probably mispronouncing his last name, but maybe it's Pollan. Whatever. This dude just wrote a book, How to Change Your Mind, and he was sort of mentioning that, Timothy Leary did kind of set back clinical research and sort of condone psychedelic use by the government like 3 decades. So anyway, why I bring that up is because I think Timothy Leary was on a mission. He was on a mission. If you get 4 million people to turn on, tune in, drop out, meaning do psychedelics, he's like, this will change the face of the earth. This will change humanity. And I think he was right. The problem is he only got to 2 million. So we got some millions left to do. But anyway, I digress. The question was, what's the experience of psychedelics for somebody who already is naturally euphoric? And I'll be frank, less spiritual at first. So first time I did what I thought was LSD, it may or may not have been. I know there's a lot of stuff out there that masquerades as LSD, but it's just some research chemical. Watch out for that stuff. That's why I prefer mushrooms too, because at least like when you're eating a mushroom, it's like nobody's gonna sit there and try to like fabricate a fake mushroom. Like that's hard to do. But like anything could be on that little tab that someone's telling you is acid, right? So anyway, I did that a couple times, and I'll tell you my experience was not very spiritual. There was no like, I don't know, there was moments of grace, but there was not like the big, wonderful, loving, benign light that I'm used to tuning into when I would do my naturally euphoric psychedelic experiences, not on psychedelics, but just sort of naturally tripping. So that's with LSD. Although it was a great experience, it was like, yeah, but it wasn't that spiritual. It was really trippy and interesting, but it wasn't that spiritual. Then I tried mushrooms, and the first time I tried mushrooms, I watched the walls melt, felt this like body load where my entire body felt like super heavy, and I'm just like sitting there in the garage going, this isn't not that great. It's not that great. Like, I'm just like, there's nothing spiritual about this. This is not taking me to a higher place. I'm just feeling kind of fucked up. But the saving grace of the mushrooms that night is I got the urge to step outside. And when I stepped outside and I saw the stars, all of a sudden there was a connection there. It was like when you make a phone call, like there was a connection there that I had totally misplaced in my consciousness. And all of a sudden it was like the stars were alive and they're like, hey, and I'm like, oh, hey guys. And it's like, they're like old friends. And I know that sounds fucking crazy, but like there is consciousness in the stars that I just had fucking ignored for all of my waking existence in this life. I mean, all of my sort of psychedelic mystical experiences before that time had been internal, meaning like I close my eyes, I go to the white light inside my mind, inside my consciousness. It still feels like it's outside of me pouring in, but it was not something I was physically looking at with my eyes. It was something that I was internally attuning to. And all of a sudden, these stars come out like a surprise party of old friends that you forgot you even had. And I was like, holy cow. I mean, like, I could not believe what I was experiencing and witnessing. And that let me know, okay, there's something to this. And I went back again and again and again. And I will tell you, like, if you get the right strain of mushrooms and you go out under the stars, you will have the most profound, amazing experience as long as your set and setting are right. And what I mean by that is you got to have your head in a good place. You got to be in a happy place before you go in. You got to know how to steer yourself. That's the other thing is like when I feel a bad trip coming on, I know how to pull the ripcord. For me, it's like I don't tolerate bad trips because I've been sort of psychedelic my whole life without these substances. I've also been suicidal my whole life without these substances. And I know that dark place that like pulls my consciousness because my consciousness is really fluid and loose. It has been my whole life. And I know when the darkness is pulling me, you know, deeper into the darkness, how to say, fuck that noise. I'm not going there. And that is something that I think experienced trippers or experienced mystics need to develop, is how to avoid the darkness and how to seek the light. So that's very important for doing these things. It's like, as long as you're seeking the light and you know how to sort of stiff arm the darkness, and I'll tell you, on a couple trips with some weird strains of mushrooms, I don't think all mushrooms are good. I think there are some weird strains, and I know, like, I go and read on these message boards, and people are like, no, psilocybin is psilocybin. It's, you know, there's no difference in strains. Bullshit. I call bullshit. There are differences in strains of marijuana. I experience differences in the feelings of different alcohols I drink. If I drink beer or champagne or whiskey, like, or tequila, like, I'm going to have a different feeling. So it's like, I think, you know, and look at marijuana, all the different strains, and they, you know, you'll go look at these things and they'll talk about this one, it'll make you sleepy, this one will make you euphoric, whatever. It's like, so if you can have that for different strains of marijuana, you can have that for different strains of mushrooms. And so I'm saying that there are certain mushrooms that will take you to a very fucked up feeling place. And when I've had strains that did that, I pulled the ripcord. And my ripcord is a fifth of whiskey. I just fucking chug half a bottle of whiskey and go to bed. I'm done. I'm out. You're fucking with me. I'm out. You can't fuck with my consciousness if I go unconscious. So it's like, so anyway, long answer to a short question. That's me. All right. What do we got, Shereen? What did I miss? What have I been doing?
I feel like I just learned so much about you.
Oh, okay.
And I actually like that you pulled the suicidal bomb, like, boom, just throwing that out there, because I feel like nobody's willing to admit that they've had those thoughts. I've had those thoughts. You've had those thoughts.
Oh, yeah.
You know, it's common. Everyone should admit it right now on the live stream. No, I'm just kidding.
Well, I think all wayseers naturally have those thoughts. I think that's just the thing. Is like, if you're a wayseer, what that fundamentally means is you are low on neurological repression. What being low on neurological repression means is that most people's minds are kind of locked into this one sort of limited spectrum of experience and emotion, and it's like training wheels for your mind, or it's like, I don't know how to say it, but it's like your brain the brain doesn't allow anything outside these confines to happen, to even enter your consciousness. So if you have an unconscious thought or feeling that's out here or out here, whether it's like a super happy, joyous, creative impulse that you could experience, like a stroke of genius that's percolating in your unconscious mind, sorry, it's not going to reach you. You stay in the confines of this. So like these people, 80% of the population, normal people, never get, like, they're not good out of the box thinkers. They're not very creative. They're not very ecstatic. They don't experience euphoria. They experience a very limited spectrum of emotion and thoughts, and it keeps them safe and it keeps them on the straight and narrow. But what they sacrifice for that is all the genius, all the ecstasy, all the like just euphoric, mind-blowing awe. I mean, they've even shown that these people do not experience frisson with frisson-evoking music, that they don't get the goosebumps with frisson-evoking music. And you can actually show that scientifically. They don't get it. They don't get frisson. They're in this box, okay? Now, if you're a Wayseer, you get the frisson, you get all the genius, you get all the euphoria. This is the light that you feel, and it's just outside of the realm of what society tells you you can think and feel. Like, so everything out here, you're like, am I weird for experiencing this or feeling this? Yes, you're weird for experiencing that and feeling it, but that weirdness is like really good weirdness, and you can kind of grab that stuff and work on it until you can sort of express it between these two lines. And that's what great artists do, and great sort of shamans do, is they kind of take this wiggly, wonderful stuff out here that's sort of way above the happiness spectrum of the normal human being, and kind of bring it in and bridge it, and sort of like, I don't know, create this conduit for all the inspired genius and love and happiness into sort of the more normal human condition, or try to push these lines over here a little bit, which is what Timothy Leary was doing. It's like, dude, if we could just get everyone to take these drugs, it'll just go like that, right? Maybe. But here's the problem. As soon as this one goes down, this is down too, okay? This is the repression of your brain, and it's limiting you to this spectrum. But Wayseers are like, boop, you got this, you got free reign, brother. You can go anywhere you want. You can be ecstatic, joy, bliss, genius, inspiration, all that stuff. You can go straight to hell too. And like, if you don't learn to command your mind, if you don't learn to direct your consciousness, you end up in hell a fuck ton of time. Like, you get a bad grade, the girl you like doesn't talk to you, you feel fat and ugly, you fall off your diet, you drink too much, I don't know, you name it. Like, you stub your toe, all of a sudden you're like, here. Like, you wake up in the morning and you're like, why the fuck do I have to live? It's like there is this terrible spectrum that is below the normal human place. And so normal people go, whoa, you're experiencing all this dark depression and anguish and whatnot over here. Well, you're not normal. Let's medicate you. Okay? Or you're experiencing sort of this oscillation across the spectrum. Again, let's medicate you. Let's put you on Ritalin. Let's get you like right there. Or let's get you on some antidepressant. Let's get you right there. So I don't appreciate those kinds of drugs. I mean, I am a caffeine addict. I cannot get myself out of that like stupor in the morning. Like, most people wake up and they're here and they're like, hey, okay, ready for work. I wake up in the morning, I'm like, I can't even human right now. I'm just, it takes like working out and 3 rock stars and a whole bunch of sunshine and shit like that to like kind of get just to normal. But the benefit of being a Wayseer, being naturally sort of uninhibited, having an open consciousness, irrepressible mind, is that even though you can really go to those dark places, you also can go to the light places, and your opportunity is to become really good at any time your consciousness starts veering towards the depression, the darkness, the sadness, the despair, learning to say, wait a second, like just like somebody said in these comments, happiness is a choice. I can redirect my consciousness and move it into the higher realms of the consciousness, higher realms of the spectrum. And I think that's kind of like what Frisian and mysticism really is. It's like, okay, when you're all fucked up, you need your hit of Frisian. And what Frisian is, it's like you've found the light, you focused on the light, you're feeling the awe, you're back chasing the beauty, the light, the joy that's way out here. And that gives you this incredible breadth of experience that most people don't have. Anyway, that's my rant for the day.
You are like on fire today, Garrett.
Ooh.
On fire.
All right. So what comments did we miss? Are we anything?
Well, someone said, "No hell, Garrett. Hell is man-made. It's all good." But that was an interesting one.
Cut your hand off and tell me that. Like, you know. It's like, it's all good. You know, I just find, like, we can't get into fucking platitudes with ourselves anymore. Like, you know, it's like, I mean, everything becomes a platitude. But it's like, and I think there's like, we need to recognize there is a state of consciousness which is hellish. Like, whether or not is it a physical place down below the ground where there's like this devil guy living down there poking people with his scepter or whatever those things are? Probably not. I don't think there is. But is there the experience of total desperation, sadness, pain, grief, depression, regret, guilt, self-hatred? Yeah.
Actually,
you know,
I like this perspective because I don't know. I feel like when people get so esoteric and all of a sudden everything is good, you're also like losing a groundedness where like you almost can't operate on planet Earth. So like in my little, you know, coaching certification, I'm like energy certified, and there's like, according to this certification, there's 7 levels of energy. And level 1 is like victim helpless. 2 is like win lose aggressive. 3 is like I'm responsible, you know, a little more conscious, a little more positive. And then it goes up the scale, right? When you get to levels like 6 and 7, you're kind of like Gandhi, Buddha, like you're like out of this world positive, and like you're like not even like, it just makes me think of like Wayne Dyer, who was like such a spiritual teacher, who was like changed the world for the better in so many ways, and also was so out of this world that like he ended up having a marriage that fell apart and had a divorce because he was so far gone. Like he wasn't able to just respond to the actual needs of the people who were in his immediate world. He was just like, he was out here, you know what I mean? So I feel like sometimes we get all philosophical and esoteric and like we talk like we're out there, but it's like, dude, we live here on Earth. Like if you want to relate with human beings, you need to like acknowledge reality, this reality, you know, like whether it's like the Matrix or not, you know, whether you're like, it doesn't matter. Like the truth is there is a real spectrum of emotions, like you're saying. And so I feel like once we try to go like, oh no, it's like, oh great, it's like, yeah, sure, like, you know, maybe on some level it is all great, and it also can feel painful, like if you cut off your hand, or, you know, I don't know, I just think there's like something gets lost when we get too far out, and I don't like that.
Yeah. And even with Wayne Dyer, like, we don't know where he was coming from. I personally think Wayne Dyer, now this is just my hit off of watching him on like a PBS special that kept interrupting the programming I really wanted to watch. But you know, my sense of him was, yes, he was on the leading edge of enlightened thought, probably in the early 80s or late 70s or mid 80s or whenever it was, like he had his first breakthrough bestseller books. And he was a student of A Course in Miracles, which I think is a profoundly amazing, miraculous text. and course that you can do that shows you where the light is, shows you where the Holy Spirit is, helps you attune to a higher place. So I think like he was a good student and probably a very advanced student at a particular point in time ahead of everybody else. He discovered A Course in Miracles way before other people did. He, wrote books based on the stuff he learned from A Course in Miracles in layman language, and everybody like was so inspired by these profound truths that he was basically pulling from another text, but also probably experienced in many ways if he did the course, which I'm sure he probably did. So he was kind of ahead of the class, right? But I think by the 90s and 2000s, people had caught up, and I think he was still sort of singing the same tune, and I'm not sure how much he was progressing ahead of the class continually. And at the same time, just because you can reach that high, like I was saying, doesn't mean you can't go whoop over here, oh shit, over there. I've known so many gurus that are just completely full of shit when you know them in their personal lives. So like you said, he got divorced. Now, people might get divorced in a totally amicable, beautiful, hey, your life path is taking you this way, mine is taking me that way. Like I'm not saying you can't have a beautiful separating of ways or going, restructuring of your relationship. Okay. I think that is possible, but at the same time, like if it looks like there's a lot of tumult and lawsuits and divorce and things and conflict in somebody's life, and then you watch him closely and he's like, this person doesn't strike me as just like this glowing beatific saint, but maybe they're just human after all. It's very possible to reach those highs, and then you fall back to your humanness, you fall back to your bullshit, you even go down the depression. Like look at fucking Robin Williams. My God, if I had to pick somebody that feels like he had the stroke of God in him, that he was able to just like turn on and beam in like pure hilarity and grace and genius and joy into a room, and then dude kills himself. Like that was probably one of the biggest what the fuck suicides I've experienced, because I was like, what? Like how is that guy? Like he's our hero of happiness.
Yes.
Killed himself, I mean, if I had to pick who's more enlightened, Robin Williams or Wayne Dyer, I pick Robin Williams hands down 10 times, 100 times over. Like Wayne Dyer is like blah blah blah. You get what you attract, and you have positive thoughts and positive things happen to you. I watch him on stage, I'm like, you don't seem that positive. You seem like boring. You seem like it's like he was I don't know, what do you call that? Not comfortable, but like pleasant.
Granola?
He was pleasantly granola and positive, right? But he wasn't reaching highs. He wasn't like whipping the audience into this ecstatic place of joy and like, oh my God. But that's what like great artists, musicians, and comedians can do, is like and I think what an artist does that's different than what the mystic does. We'll say Wayne Dyer's like the guru / mystic or monk, and then we'll say like Robert Williams is a great artist, and other artists like shamans who stand on stage and they call themselves rock stars, but they're really shamans, right? So you got the shaman and you got the monk or whatever. But I think the artist is able to channel through they're able to channel through light, grace, amazing things that they don't even experience themselves. Like that's like the tears of the clown. It's like they're able to make everybody laugh and channel such joy into the room. But it's like the reason that they're able to do it is because they do it in a dissociative way, meaning they don't really feel it themselves. They kind of keep their inner identity separated from this thing that they're bringing through. And that's like why you have the troubled artists who cut off their ears and fits of depression and commit suicide and all that, because that light that's coming through them isn't reaching them. It's reaching their audience, but it's not reaching them. It's like they've created a pipeline from the great reservoirs of inspiration through themselves to you, the audience, but the way they're able to do that with such clarity and such power is they don't have to be changed by it. It could just go right past them, and they can sort of stay the same little fucked up self and hold on to their egos while they're channeling all that beauty. Whereas I think the monk or I'll say the real like spiritual worker, like those people are trying to bring that beauty in, but they're letting it change themselves, which makes it way more threatening. It makes it like something you don't want to do. It's real work, because now you gotta, like, every time you shine that light, it shines light on your shit, and you have to deal with it. And it's like that's a different kind of work. And I think doing that work will bring you to enlightenment, whereas doing the artist's work will show you where enlightenment is, but maybe you just stay extremely troubled while you're doing it.
This is interesting.
Okay, what do we got here? Any other? No?
Well, I mean, there were definitely a few interesting comments.
Okay. Beware of gazing into the abyss for too long, for if you can see into the abyss can see into you.
That one creeped me out a little, not gonna lie.
Yeah.
What do you think about that one?
That's when I hit that bottle of whiskey and go to bed. Sorry, Abyss, I'm out. Get me out of here. I'm not up for this. I think that's there again is the work of the true saint. Like, the story of Jesus is that he was crucified and experienced basically hell on earth, or someone said living hell in the comments. So it's like, okay, so you can experience a living hell, right? But then the story is that Jesus, after being crucified, when he died, his soul went to like the hell, like the biblical hell, and that he went down to the lowest place in the biblical hell and took on all of the pain, suffering, and guilt of every human being in the world and that ever was, that accepted his help, that ever will be. It's like all of humanity's pain, suffering, and guilt. You went there, took it all on, stared into the abyss, and solved it somehow. And then after 3 days in the pits of hell, was resurrected. So why do I bring that up? Because, like, okay, I bring it up because I think that's the opportunity of the ultimate heroic journey. That's the ultimate heroic opportunities, is to be able to stare into the abyss, confront it, and solve it. Like, bring your light, bring a transcendent light to it, and I don't shine it away. I don't recommend it. Like, that is like way above our pay grade. I think most people just can't do that. Like, you better have your shit together. You better be able to walk on water and raise the dead first before you try doing that. But I think that is sort of the dark night of the soul. That is what Jung described as the shadow, and that the way to solve the problems in your life is not to just try to be happier. It's to take happiness and light and shine it on those dark places of yourself that you judge against, the things you don't want to look at. So I think that brings us full circle here. Somebody right in the beginning said, I'm happy all the time. And that reminded me of like other people, sort of the spiritual crutch, the temptation of every ego, once you get into the spiritual path and with a spiritual community, is to be the best student, right? The best, most spiritual person. Oh, I'm a spiritual person now, which is a fucking mind trip, because we're all spiritual people. Like, how is one person more spiritual than another person? It's like, okay, maybe you focus on the ephemeral, the esoteric, the transcendent more. That's great. Like, so you could be, you focus on that more. That's great. You could be a more transcendent person. But it's like, we're all spiritual, right? But I think there's this this head trip that people get on, this ego trip that people get on. It's like, you're more spiritual than the next person. How are you more spiritual? Because you are always happy. Okay? Because you're always able to focus on the positive, because your vibration is really high. But I think what that drives people to do, and I've seen so many people, especially after The Secret came out, become like these sort of psychotic positivists, you know, like blissinies, like everything is just great. I'm so happy. And The Secret was late to the show because this was happening early days of Wayne Dyer, late 70s, early 80s. People had already figured out this sort of, you know, all is good, happiness is the answer, you can just choose to be happy. You know, you can't afford the luxury of a negative thought. I think that book was published in like 1981, bestseller. Like these ideas were out there already, and people who were drinking the Kool-Aid were like, oh, you know, I'm just think positive. Just be positive. Oh, don't think about that nasty stuff. Don't think about how you're ashamed of that. Don't think about, it's like, well, no, because if like you're carrying guilt around, like you did something that makes you feel guilty, or you have thoughts that make you feel guilty, or thoughts that you're ashamed of, or there's some part of you that you judge against, it's like that is the cold, dark place that needs the warm light of your loving attention. And the problem with it is that's the abyss. That is the deep, dark abyss. And when you try to turn your loving attention to these things that horrify you, that are part of your shadow self, you usually crumble. That's usually what happens. Your deep, dark abyss, your shadow self, is so much stronger than the little part of you that has the conscious love attention that tries to solve it, that you end up imploding when you do this, and it's a train wreck, and that's why people don't do it. That's why people try to just like, I'm not going to think about, I'm going to change my state, think good thoughts, change my focus, you know, and it's like putting blinders on yourself and like trying to keep yourself focused on the positive. That is a good tactic to take to get yourself out of the deep, dark space when you have no other way of handling it, right? But there is a way of handling it, and that way is that there is a transcendent light, a higher power. It's what Alcoholics Anonymous is talking about when it's like, you're all fucked up, your alcoholism, every time you like try to confront your deep abyss of alcoholism and whatever's causing it for you, or drug addiction or whatever it is, whenever you try to confront that on your own, you get sucked right back into the demons get you, they pull you in, you're fucked. You're right? Like you're done. You looked at the abyss and you're fucked. You can't handle it. You're on another bender. Your life is a wreck. It's your little consciousness, your little spark of light and love is not enough to confront these demons often. And the thing that is this higher power that we all have access to. And as soon as you surrender to this higher power and say, hey, you know, my little spark, my little light of love keeps getting blown out and stuffed by this deep, dark abyss, these demons that I don't know how to handle, but they're with me all the time. They're always chasing me, always getting me to eat that extra chocolate almond or drink too much whiskey or do too many drugs or do that thing that fucks up my life or overspend my money or whatever it is, whatever those demons are that fuck with your happiness. Every time you try to focus on them, they snuff you. But you say, you know, instead of your little spark of light and love trying to confront that, you say, hey, big brother, hey, higher power, I am willing to look at my fucked up shit as long as you got my back, as long as you are with me. And so instead of you looking at the fucked up shit directly, you look at the light, the transcendent light and love of a higher power, and you look with that. That's your beacon. And then it's like, instead of this little flashlight that, you know, walking through the trepidation, the forest where all the demons are lurking and something's gonna get you, and all you've got is like this little flashlight, and you look around, and every time it moves, like, oh shit, there was something there. Ever play that guy? I think it's I don't know, Slender Man. Oh my god, if you play this video game Slender Man, it like just plays on that archetypal fear of not having enough light to see what's behind all those shadows in the forest, right? But it's like all of a sudden you could just bring in the big guns. And it's like, boom, huge floodlights. You've got an army with you, an army of angels and huge floodlights. And like, guys, gig's up. Clear the woods. We're making it daytime. Here's the sun. Like, let's get all this shit out of here. That's the higher power. That's the opportunity. That's the thing that we get to turn to. That is what I attuned my consciousness to when I was just doing the natural, sort of naturally euphoric, self-psychedelic. I wasn't taking any drugs. I wasn't doing anything except for that for a solid 20, 30 years. That is what solves things. That is what gets you out of those deep, dark places and solves those deep, dark places. And that is what reveals, oh, wow, that's a really fucked up part of me that is now healed because it's healed in the light and love of this higher power, which is beyond you. That's the surrender. That's the gift. I think that's why Alcoholics Anonymous works. And then incidentally, due to start Alcoholics Anonymous, also received all of that information or some form of it on an LSD trip. and he actually advocated like LSD as a way of doing that. But, you know, the rest of his organization was a little squeamish about introducing drugs into...
Right.
So
interesting. I definitely have a friend who needs to hear this message.
Yeah, well, you should go tell your friend. And I think we need to be done with this this podcast or whatever this is now. So it's been great talking with all of you. Open that pineal gland of yours. Surrender to a higher power. May the grace of God be with you. Have a happy, wonderful week. And if you're not happy, that's okay. Call on that transcendent light, that transcendent higher power, and say, okay, I don't know why I'm not happy, but I know that there's something wrong with me. It's probably in my shadow self that's making me unhappy, or something in my situation that's making me unhappy. So help me shine the floodlights on it and solve it. And like, that's boom. That's the big opportunity here. Cocktail time. All right. God bless you all.
Bye, guys.
Good night.